Welcome to the Honest Field Guide podcast, a weekly show dedicated to winning in entrepreneurship. I'm your host, JinJa Birkenbeuel. I'm the CEO of Burt Creative, a leadership, brand strategy, and visual identity agency dedicated to helping scale brands and assist with their adaptability with the market. On my show, you get to eavesdrop in on intimate conversation with business leaders and inspired entrepreneurs, designed to give you tips and strategies so your own business can thrive. Subscribe and join me each week for laughter, inspiration, and honest stories. Mary, Mary, why you bugging? Bum, 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 bum. That song, Mary, has been in my head like all morning, and then like the Monkees version came on too, like the Monkees version of Mary, Mary, which is
Yeah.
And I don't know, do you get that a lot?
Not anymore, but that song came out when I was in seventh grade, so you can imagine
Wait,
the
which one? The
and
Run DMC song, obviously, not
the
the
Run
Monkees, not the
DMC,
Monkees
not the
one. Come
monk.
on now,
I'm not
come
that
on now.
ancient.
We're not that. Oh my God,
Um,
it's been
but
just
yeah, yeah.
it's going through my head. Mary Nisi, Mary Nisi. So I have to say that I am so excited. I know that was a weird like cold open, but I'm so excited. I'm so excited today to be speaking to Mary Nisi, the founder of Toast and Jams DJs. My name is JinJa Birkenbeuel. I am the founder and host of the Honest Field Guide podcast. And normally, I mean, this is going to be a little bit of a different show. Normally, I would be talking to Mary to really understand her journey as an entrepreneur. Like, what has she done? Like, how does she do what she's doing? How is she making all of her amazing money? And like, how is she helping other women and men and everybody else and theys and others, whoever, be thriving in the world of entrepreneurship? Because a lot of, like, this is a great time to be an entrepreneur. We have a lot of resources available now, especially with artificial intelligence. There's just no excuse. But we're not going to talk, I'm actually not going to be talking about entrepreneurship today. And there's a lot of other episodes of my podcast that you can listen to on the Honest Field Guide. You can find my podcast anywhere that you listen to shows, any place. And actually, Mary interviewed me a few months ago on her show. What's your show called again, Mary?
It's called All Up in My Lady Business.
All Up in My Lady Business. And you know what? In All Up in My Lady Business, I even talk about the yoni. Speaking of All Up in My Lady Business.
A lot, actually.
We did talk about that. That was so funny.
The Yoni was our co-pilot on that episode.
I know, right? Exactly. So anyway, when we were on the show, when I was on Mary's show, All Up in My Lady Business, we were celebrating actually how we originally met. We met at an event that was put on by the author Gillian Flynn of Gone Girl, and it was at her house, and she's got this amazing house full of like books and like wood and whiskey, and we were at a fundraiser for Republican turned Democratic state representative Sean Casten. Yeah, he used to be.
He was a Republican first?
Yes.
Oh.
What the? I mean, look it up right now, girl. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a Republican turned Democrat. I was like very uncertain. I was like kind of, I was skeptical. I was like, I don't know about this because I usually don't trust Republicans that turn Democrat. I usually think that they're
I think sometimes you can't help, like if you're raised that way,
Yes,
like Republicans are very into the identity
Turncoat.
politics of it all. And if they,
Yes.
it's like, I get it. If you're raised Republican and you're living in, fucking, where does he live?
I don't know, but listen, I'm always scared they're going to bait and switch on me. Always. I'm always scared
Naperville,
of it. Yeah, I'm scared of it all the time.
Wheaton, all those places.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he hasn't turned coat on us, but I mean,
No, he's been great, actually.
Yeah, and we were there. He's actually the state representative in the 6th district, right? Anyway, but we were there to raise money for him. I was actually invited by one of my advisors and sponsors, Christy Hefner, who's one of my favorite people in the entire universe. And Mary, like I met her there. I didn't even know her before that, but the minute we were all there together, all these like 100 people or so in this beautiful, private, amazing house, Mary and I were like magnets. I was like, okay, who is this? Who is this bitch? Like, who is this? Because like she and I are the same. She raised a ton of money. We had a great time. And after that political fundraiser, and at the time I was actually very involved in politics. I was doing some other work. I'm not involved in politics anymore in Chicago. Kind of stepped aside a little bit because didn't really feel like it's working for me in general, or me as an entrepreneur business owner in Chicago. But we ended up connecting with other people at the event. Remember, we met connected with a lawyer. I can't remember their names right now, but we decided like these really cool people at this fundraiser, we were going to get together and like have dinner. We met Greg. He's like a venture capital guy too.
It was him and his girlfriend who was like a lawyer. And then there was another woman.
There was
There was
another
a guy?
No, there was another guy because like he ended up inviting me later to an event where I met some really super famous people, including David Crosby's son. At this event, it was just really great. I know you're like, what? I didn't even know about that. But anyway, so Mary and I were like going out to dinners with these like random people, and it was just like reminding me of one of my girlfriends who used to live in New York, and she's like, the reason she missed New York and the reason she kind of loved New York over Chicago is that in New York you could like be out with a collection of people at dinner, an artist, you know, a VC guy, a musician, a writer, someone in finance, a bum, right? Like you could be at dinner like having a great conversation, but Chicago's not like that. Like you go to Chicago and like you go to dinner and like everybody there is like in finance. Everybody's a baker. Everybody's a lawyer.
And everyone's the same color. That's the other thing.
Exactly. Well, definitely the race and ethnic piece is challenging in Chicago. It's not really like that in New York. So what I loved about our dinners that we did for a while, and this was of course pre-pandemic, was I was like, I would never have known these people. I would have never met these people. It never would have happened had I not been invited by Christy Hefner to this fundraiser for Sean Casson, and I got to meet Mary. And so then since then we've become really good friends. I mean, oh my God, it's like so bizarre, right? So anyway, I thought to myself, you know what? I love talking to Mary because she's really honest. And I thought let's just have a conversation that's a little bit outside of my normal thing with the Honest Field Guide podcast. We're going to have another conversation in another couple weeks, and I just really want to sort of talk today about Chicago politics a little bit, right? Like that's really, we're not going to talk about geopolitics. I really want to keep this conversation local because I feel like Chicago is under attack. Like I feel like we're under attack, and it's not just
under
like,
attack from what?
I don't know. Like it's not just from outside people that don't know anything about Chicago. I feel like we're actually under attack even from people that live here, right? Like I don't understand what's actually happening here. I'm like, did it, you know, and when I say attack, like negative news, lots of horrible things. Like if you go to TikTok, there's so much like hostility about Chicago on TikTok. Instagram is the same way. Like you go to LinkedIn sometimes and see crazy articles on the news. Like Chicago seems to be getting a really bad rap. And one thing else.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you go ahead.
My sister who lives in LA,
Yeah.
she's like, so is it really as scary in Chicago as,
Yes.
and I'm like, no. Like, but the unfortunate thing is that it's like all the crime in Chicago is all like black on black crime that is very insulated from the non-black and poor areas. I mean, if I may be so bold to say this as a white person, I might be wrong, but that's what I kind of glean from that. And it's and I think just to go back to the New York of it all, like New York, everybody has to live on top of each other all the time. Like there's there's like a $1 million condo next to a homeless encampment, so like everybody kind of has to get along to a certain degree. You can't ignore certain groups, or you'll be on the train and it's like a guy in a suit, a guy in a chicken costume, and they're all together. So it's like, I think that's how.
Don't forget the pole dancers on the train.
Don't forget the pole dancers. And so I think you're forced to confront these things in a way that we can insulate ourselves against here in Chicago.
Yeah. I mean, so there's a lot to unpack there. So I do think there is black on black crime, but there's also white on black crime and white on white crime. And there's also financial crime and redlining. There's all kinds of things that are actually violent against black people that you can't see that are part of the system and the infrastructure. And those are the things that don't get really talked about on the news very much. I mean, I do a lot of writing about it, and other people in my community do a lot of writing about it. So I guess, to your point and to my point, I feel like there's some truth to Chicago being a violent city because of what we're talking about. It's just like there's violence at every level of the system, at every point from birth until death. There's just extraordinary financial, economic, physical, mental, emotional violence and abuse. And I think, like, let me just say this, Mary, maybe it's always been this way. I don't know, but I do feel like somehow maybe like in 2019, it could be because I'm a mom, you're a mom. I have 3 sons, right? I have 3 black sons. They're mixed, but they're black. I have black sons. You have 1 child. And I'm like, I feel like I started noticing a shift in 2019 when the teachers went on strike during Mayor Lightfoot's tenure. For the longest time in the history of the Chicago Public Schools, the teachers went on strike. And then after the strike, there was a break of like a month, and then we had a pandemic. And then we had a pandemic that went on in Chicago for like almost 3 years, where almost everything was shut down. So we literally lost almost 4 years of life for our children in Chicago. And I feel like that is, to me, when the switch happened. And I don't know if we've ever come back. And I don't know that we've had, I think Frank, I want to say that the leadership in Chicago has always been challenging and challenged. And I've always been stressed by them. But I do think it's sort of unfortunate that, like, Mayor Lightfoot did not get another chance. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, and I don't know enough about Mayor Brandon, but I don't know that she got another chance. Like, I think she was on the right track. I think she was under the gun. I also think, like, it's sad that we couldn't reelect a black woman, which is another conversation.
That's the problem. That is it right there in a nutshell. What
do you think though about what I said? Like, literally, like, from 2019 until maybe just earlier this year, like, I feel like Chicago has not climbed out of what started in 2019. And you've moved out of the city, girl. You left Chicago and you took your kid to the suburbs.
I fled.
You fled.
It
wasn't a white flight. You weren't a white flight fled. You weren't like, I'm flying because I'm a white woman. Like, you were flying because of the things we're talking about.
Well, and also my son is neurodiverse, and the things he was getting in school wasn't, his IEP was barely being addressed. And, but I mean, but I do think that Chicago since 2019 has been difficult, but I think that's also the same thing can be said for most urban areas, like we're like large cities, like, especially, when you take into consideration the situation with Governor Abbott in Texas, busing migrants all over the country to other places, which I don't, it's a different conversation, but
yes,
I do.
That really is.
Yeah. But I do think that Lori Lightfoot got a very bad rap. And I think that there are people who are willing to, like, I think she got some of the same complaints that anybody gets when they are a mayor in a large city. And I think she got a lot of the same complaints that large mayors in cities under the pandemic. And I think that she had to make a lot of really hard decisions that were very, quite frankly, conservative compared with, a lot of other places were doing. And I do believe that as a result of those, I think we had a really good handle on, the pandemic, like masking and mandates and all the other, the distancing, et cetera. And I think that people were it was easier to say she overreached, she overstepped. And it's like, but we don't have the same death tolls that other cities have. And so I think that she got black womaned, I think. Like,
I've never can we make that into a t-shirt? Black woman. I have been black woman. Like, seriously, like, I have been black woman, quote unquote.
And I feel like it feels weird for me saying this stuff, especially saying it to a black person. And I hope that you'll call me out if I'm saying anything where you're like, shut the fuck up, white girl.
Right. We're always, yes, there's a lot of shut the fuck up. So not right now. I mean, I'm always black woman. Any black woman I know will tell you that's the truth.
Well, and I think, and it's, also just womaned, like women, I feel her first fault was being a woman, and then her second fault was being black.
Yeah, and she's LGBTQ as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole thing, right?
I lived 2 blocks away from her.
Oh,
and
okay.
so
Wow.
because literally I had the same, the cops were really heavy around my house because, my neighborhood got very safe during Lori Lightfoot's.
Yeah, because they have to be safe because they're elected officials, and it's just the way it has to be. But I guess, like, I think she's glad to be gone. I think she's like, you know what, you're not gonna mess with me anymore. Like, you know what I mean? Like, she's out and hopefully she's living her best life. And now we have we have a new mayor, and I'm going to be really honest. I voted for him not because I knew him. I don't know anything about, Mayor Brandon. I voted against Paul Vallis.
Yeah.
I did.
Because it's easy to vote against that guy.
It was just like, I was just like, oh my God, like, what I don't
talk about a turncoat.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't really care what happens. I just can't live with myself voting for Vallis. I don't care what he says or what history he claims he has. I just thought I can't do it. So I guess the benefit of voting against Vallis for Brandon is that I really, like, walked into the experience with Mayor Brandon. I'm still in this experience with Mayor Brandon where I don't know anything about him. I don't know what he's doing. I don't want to really know what he's trying to accomplish. He's really a blank slate, which to me gives him an opportunity to make some changes in Chicago, because a lot of people are just kind of waiting to see, like, what are you going to do? How are you going to fix things? Or how are you going to make things better? I don't think he can actually fix anything, because no one's been able to fix anything ever, right? Things are just so broken. But I feel like, don't you feel like, I mean, you're kind of out of Chicago now, but you're from a distance now, right? Like, you're not really.
Well, I work in the city still, and I'm
city, right?
And I'm in Evanston. I mean, it's not like I'm in Bolingbrook or something. Not,
right.
No offense to Bolingbrook, but
the poor people of Bolingbrook.
but just I'm basically just in,
we
like,
love you, Bolingbrook.
We do.
We're not dissing on you, Bolingbrook. Go ahead. What?
But I went to go to a taping of my another podcast, because that's what we do now. It's called Love It or Leave It, and it's like a crooked podcast, and it's like a political comedy variety show type thing. And Mayor Brandon Johnson was one of the guests.
Interesting.
And
were you on there at the same time?
I was just watching it. I was an audience.
You were watching the podcast.
Yeah, it was at the Chicago Theater, or no, that one was at the Vic.
Oh, it was a live taping.
It was a live recording of the podcast.
Wow. Okay, that's really fancy.
It's the most losery thing you could ever imagine. I went to go see a podcast being recorded live.
You couldn't go see a concert, Toast and Jam DJs. You had to go see a political event at the Vic.
Seriously. Yeah, and I got like 7th row. Like, I wanted to be in the front. I wanted
desperation.
Yeah, no, it's sad.
Why?
Because I love this podcast. In this particular instance, I took my one of my employees with me. My husband was supposed to go, but he had a Cub Scout meeting.
Was it on a Friday damn night? I mean, listen, of all the things to do, that is the last thing I would think to be doing, girl. I mean,
I am bright red right now. I am bright red.
Just go ahead. But like you did the thing, and then what?
Anyway, so it was cool because Mayor Brandon Johnson was there, and he was able to talk, and he actually, I mean, he sounded good, like he had, he seemed very progressive and excited to take it on, and that he was only set, so at that point he'd only been mayor for 78 days or something. And,
well, that's,
okay. I mean, he's only been mayor for like 80, like this was 3 weeks ago, I think, when I went to go see him. And, but one of the things he was talking about was once again, the migrants that are being brought here. And I didn't realize, I thought it was like 10 migrants, and we're getting like 20 busfuls a day of migrants that are coming up from the border. And I mean, you can see the effects of that right now.
Okay, where do you live?
Evanston.
Yeah, they ain't going to Evanston.
Yeah, they are.
Come on.
There are. I mean, there are.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought it was the Chicago police stations. Like, it's just.
Well,
I think so terrible about the whole situation. I feel awful.
Well, just the begging of it, the whole thing. Like, there's a lot of people, like every single corner has people that are asking for money, and they've got like whole families there. And it's like, it's just a heartbreaking, it is. And the thing I hate about the entire thing, and not to take this in a completely, because this is geopolitical, but just nobody's asking the question of why they're leaving the places that they're at. They're like, they're coming here. They're upending their family. They're sending unaccompanied minors. And it's like, how fucking terrible does it have to be in Honduras that you're sending your 9-year-old along with a bunch of other 9-year-olds to walk through Mexico and Guatemala? I mean, it's like, you would, like, if you are, and maybe it's because I'm a mom and but there's a lot of people who are moms that should have a bit more empathy towards the situation. And like, typically speaking, most of these places are fleeing places based on policies that we, America, inflicted on them. And a lot of these people are climate refugees, like where they live, or just is inhospitable places that, I mean, that's really, I mean, honestly, again, I keep going in this geopolitical direction, but I do believe that the Middle East, so much of the problems in the Middle East is because of climate change, because these places are getting hotter and hotter and hotter and less able to grow anything and less able to, air condition places because they don't have the same, infrastructure. And so these people they can't farm. And so they come into the cities and there's no jobs. So then they just get radicalized and all of a sudden they're blowing up things. I know that's a super
that's a really big one, because I really just want to stick with local politics and why small businesses like ours getting more help from the city of Chicago and other places. But
I know. I can't help
climate change and farming.
Yeah.
But so here's the thing though. Like, there's actually a really good book that you should read, and everybody listening. It's called "Thank You for Being Late" by Thomas Friedman, and he actually talks about the acceleration of all kinds of things. And one of the biggest things he talks about in one of the chapters of his book is the displacement of farmers because of the
Hmm.
acceleration of technology. And they can't, and
Hmm.
that human beings actually can't keep up with what's going on, and that people are going to die
Hmm.
because of it. You really have to read this book. Thank you for being late, because then you'll really have I think you'll have a better understanding of the impact of technology, literally the impact of technology and the speed of things on farmers all over the world. I mean, you would be like, what are you talking about? How does this even connect? And if you read that book, you'll learn. I've actually read it twice, and I listened to the audio of it as well. I wish he'd make an update. He's a Pulitzer Prize winning author,
Hmm.
a
It's Thomas
writer,
Friedman.
and yeah,
He was the
I
New York
actually
Times, right? Or no?
believe
Yeah.
it. Actually, I actually sent a message to him. I was like, hey, can you just come on my podcast? I want to talk about your book. And he ignored me, of course. But you know
Yeah.
what? If you don't ask, you don't receive.
You know what?
Um, I mean,
Yeah,
seriously, like, you
it's
have to
100%
ask
of the
me
stuff
for
you don't
stuff. I'm
take.
sorry, but listen. So, okay, so back to Chicago and off the
Hmm.
geopolitical thing, because
Yes.
one of the things I did hear Mayor Brandon say was, the migrant issue is a global issue, and all I could think to myself was, dude, you have a gazillion businesses in Chicago, black owned specifically, that are not connected to the political elite here, not connected to the political system. They don't have any way to get through, to get past, or to make it anywhere in the city. Can you please bring things back to a local conversation for us? Because a lot of small businesses I know and entrepreneurs, they can't start, they can't make money, they can't build wealth, they can't build relationships. They can't get into the Illuminati in Chicago. They can't get through to the right relationships to help them be successful. And I'm like, I want him to address that, because if you address the financial challenges that we have, then you might be able to fix other things, right? I mean, and
Hmm.
I don't feel like that's happening.
Well,
I don't feel like it's really happening the way it should in Chicago. There's people that are sort of trying to do things, but they're really not effective. Like, for example, I applied recently. I went through an RFP process for the Department of Cultural Affairs to run training to help small business owners and leaders that are running nonprofit organizations in the art community, help them understand things like digital marketing. And I got a
mhm.
message that said, you're not good enough to run digital marketing. I know you're not good enough to run digital marketing classes, or to help artists understand how to use solutions and strategies to, like, make money on their art. Yes, I get it.
If you aren't the fucking gold standard, what were they hoping for?
Well, I don't really know if they were hoping for anything, but I do think that what I'm trying to say is, like, when you hear things on the outside that Chicago's dangerous and Chicago's broken and it's violent and people are going to get hurt and killed. What I'm trying to say is, it's not just the easy to typical narrative that you actually said, black on black crime. It's really easy to fall into that space and just say, black people are getting shot in the street, the police aren't doing anything to help them. It's easy to fall into that narrative, but the reality is that the abuse and the violence is extensive in Chicago, and it's not getting better, it's getting worse. And so
Well, and
when
I
I
think I
see,
think a lot
like,
of it.
when I see dudes like, the head of, like, World Business Chicago, for example, talking about Chicago has a bad rap, I'm like, there's a reason that Chicago's getting a bad rap. And it's unfortunate that we're responding to dog whistles where people are
Hmm.
just talking about physical violence, which is important and must be addressed and must be dealt with. But there are so many layers of violence in Chicago that are invisible. And that's the thing that people, for some reason, they either intentionally aren't wanting to talk about it, or it's so nuanced and takes conversation that nobody wants to deal with it because they're really busy looking at TikToks and Instagrams and getting instantaneous
Hmm.
gratification about things. I just don't know, but I'm trying to figure out, like, you know, I'm feeling more uncomfortable, and I don't think it's my age. Like, I know people that have moved out of Chicago because they're older, they're aging out of the city, and they don't have children anymore, and they don't want to pay high taxes because they don't have kids in public schools, and why should they pay? Like, I understand that
Oh, you're
conversation.
really cute with your high taxes.
I
That's real
mean,
cute.
I mean,
Yeah,
seriously,
it's real
exactly.
cute.
But I'm like, why am I what is the discomfort? Like, when can I make it? How can I make it stop? Like, what is
I
it?
mean,
Yeah.
it's interesting when you say the invisible violence, because I mean, invisible violence is also psychological violence, it's psychological warfare. And I think that that's like, the one of the things about Chicago that I have kind of realized now that I'm like out of it, but not really, like I still have like one foot in Chicago. And it's like everything in the city is so hard. It is
Yes,
so
so
hard to
hard.
do everything here. Like for me to go to the grocery store when I lived here, it was like 45 minutes just in traveling. And and like it was, and like now I can like go to the grocery store, go to the dry cleaner, go to Home Depot, talk to somebody on the corner for 10 minutes and do it all inside of an hour. And it's like,
I've heard
you
about that
know,
from other people that have moved to the suburbs. I mean,
and
listen, the call of the suburbs ain't. It's not going to work for me. If I'm out of here, I'm like literally going to the damn desert.
yeah.
I mean, seriously, I'm
But
from the desert. I'm going back to the desert. I'm not going to
but
be.
I beyond the ease of being able to do grocery
Yeah.
shopping, just the way the town operates,
Hmm.
like I pay a lot of money in taxes. Like it's like a sickening amount of money for me in taxes.
Hmm.
And but I get what I pay for out of it,
Yeah. Yeah. I
like
hear you. Hmm.
and it sucks that in Chicago we are so used to being neglected. Like we're so used to like, paying a lot in taxes and, there's just garbage everywhere. And when you call your alderman and you're like, I lived on next to a bus stop when I was living in the city. And I called the alderman and I was like, can I get a garbage can for my bus stop? Because there's just garbage everywhere and everybody wants to like throw away something before they get on the bus. And he's like, yeah, we can't put garbage cans on the corners because people will use them as their regular garbage cans and there'll be like garbage bags in there. And I'm like,
Like New
so
York, the garbage will be
like
on the streets like in New York.
but no, but he meant like people were like throw their garbage bags into the garbage can. They should be throwing them into their garbage, that the city
Got it.
provides for
Yeah.
their for janitorial.
Right.
And I'm like,
Streets
so
and sand.
you don't want people to use the garbage cans? Like that
Yeah.
seems dumb. And he's like, well, the problem is that people use them too much and we can't afford to give that route to someone on streets and sanitation. And I'm like, but then you just have garbage everywhere and you got to
You
pay
know,
somebody else to clean that up.
I
And
swear,
it's just like,
I mean, listening to like literally the benefit of living in an urban environment is the diversity and the
mhm,
amenities and the resources that we have, like, the museums and really amazing
mhm,
Michelin star restaurants. All those things are benefits. But the other reason that people stay in cities is, sanitation, law enforcement, really great schools, and quality of life. And I guess, again, I keep going back to this. Like when one of my sons was, he was at After School Matters this summer. And this is my child that has, he's got ADHD, which I believe was intensified because of the pandemic. Like he was
yes.
4 damn years on freaking online learning.
Mhm,
This kid is not
mhm,
like, he's 100% gamer now. Like he's
mhm,
not, he's not doing well in high school, and like he's doing great at like learning how to like build games on Roblox and stuff. Like he's really killing it there. Maybe he's gonna be a gamer, I don't know. But like when I was down there, I was just realizing how beautiful it was that he was outside, and he was I bought him a new bike, and he was riding his bike, all the way from our house near the United Center all the way to Grant Park, which was like a big deal for him, but it was also a big deal for me. I'm like, oh my God, he's like my little guy, and I'm like letting him go on a bike by himself in Chicago, where bikers get hit constantly,
mhm.
intentionally sometimes. Like I had a cab driver, a guy in an unmarked black van that tried to run me down on Milwaukee Avenue, and there was another biker next to me who screamed at the top of his lungs to stop the guy from doing it. But anyway, that's a different thing. But he was down there. And I was looking around like, wow, this is what Chicago's about. He's down in Grant Park. He's experiencing beautiful things with the urban growers, and they're really beautiful people towards him, and they're beautiful towards all the people. And then there was a guy that was sitting. He was one of the guards because it was happening during NASCAR, which was like, oh my God, what the heck? And NASCAR, whatever. He was working the NASCAR event, and we just started talking because I talk to people, I listen to people,
Mhm,
right, just like you.
mhm, mhm.
And I was just sort of saying like, because I like to ask questions. I was like, so what do you think?
Me
Like,
too.
he's a young guy, right? He's younger. He's like probably 15 years younger than me or something, 20 or whatever. I'm like, so, he's really good looking, handsome guy. And I'm like, so what do you think about Chicago? Like, he's like, yeah, I don't see myself staying here to retire. And I was like, what? Like, I literally was like, he's so young. He was young, and I was like, wait a minute, you're not even like
Mhm.
anywhere near retirement age. What are you talking about? He's like, yeah, I can't see myself here. I can't visualize it. My girlfriend is the same way. We're sitting here like this is not where we're going to stay. And I thought, okay, like if he's saying that, like he's not even close to like he don't even have any kids yet. And I thought to myself, it didn't used to be like that. Like, right? Like I've talked to other people in Chicago that have been here their whole lives who grew up on the South Side,
Mm-hmm.
or grew up in Hyde Park. Like I grew up in Hyde Park. And they're all kind of saying similar things like this city, I don't recognize the city anymore. And then I'm like, okay, is it because of all the corporate branding, or is it really because
Mm-hmm.
what is it? What is
Well,
happening here?
I mean,
Why
I
can't
think
people
we've gone on a lot of different avenues here, but I do think that you aren't wrong about I mean, the corporatization of the city in general. Because I mean, that was
mm-hmm.
the things that really kind of make Chicago Chicago are like the corner stores, the little restaurants that like have been there for 80 years. Like, and when, you get an offer you can't refuse to sell your land, and all of a sudden it becomes like an urgent care center, like
That's
it's not even being
awful.
replaced with
It's
something
awful.
fun.
Yeah, yeah.
And
No
um
green space.
well, but my husband and I our anniversary was a couple weeks ago, and yeah, 12 years,
Oh,
the fighting 12. And we
the
stayed at a
fighting
hotel
12.
down, yeah, I don't know.
What?
It was just like,
Is
like
that a
Stephen
thing?
Colbert. No, Stephen Colbert would always go like, whenever you talk about a district, he'd always go, the fighting, whatever the number.
Serious? Oh,
Anyway,
he just
it's a
went the
dumb,
fighting 12. So
yeah, it's like a
what does it
dumb,
mean for me? What does it mean for me then? I've been married almost
uh,
30. I've been married 30 years. What do I call what's wrong with me? Fighting
it's
30?
always, you're still fighting. Um,
30. The thriving 30 or the
You've been
terrible
married for
30?
30 years. Might be thriving. If you can make it 30 years, that's bonkers.
I don't
So
know how
anyway, it
we're
was
making it 30 years. I don't think we are.
so our,
I don't think it's
well,
work. I think I'm in a post-pandemic marriage now.
we all are.
Yeah, I know, but like it's okay, we all are, but yeah, you're right. We are all I'm married to a post-pandemic man. Like this is a different man than I had before the
Yeah.
pandemic, to
I
be
mean, mine
honest.
too.
It's
I'm a
it's
different person though. I mean,
I think I'm better, honey. I don't know what you're talking about.
yeah. Yeah. Well, no, I'm
I'm
different. I'm
better,
not the
but
same
like
person. Okay, so let me just finish what I was
I
going to
mean,
say.
but I know, but no, seriously, wait, hold on. This is part of it. This is part of it. We're also in a post-pandemic Chicago with post-pandemic people whose brains have been forever changed by the experience of the pandemic. And so I think that has to go into something like what you're about to say, because I think the experiences, the people, the relationships, the way we view the world, the way we think, what's happening, I think it like we're not in a fog anymore. Maybe the city's always been this problem. Okay, all right.
First of all,
Okay, girl. Go ahead,
I
say
don't
it.
think this is a unique problem to Chicago and also, but
Really?
we went
Mm,
to
okay, maybe not.
so we stayed at a hotel downtown, and so
In
we're,
Chicago.
we stayed at London House, which is like a whacker in Michigan. It was fine for considering how expensive it was. Like it was
It was
like
not
that's the
like it was not blowing you.
no,
It didn't blow you away.
no.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Did you get a
Uh
massage and a
but
facial?
I didn't get a facial, I got a massage. But anyway,
Okay.
at night we went out to dinner and we were walking around downtown, and it was like fucking Vegas.
Yeah. Oh.
Saturday night in Chicago. I mean, it was 10 o'clock at night. There's still throngs of people around. Like they're all drunk, and we went to that casino, the new casino, because it was like right there, and why not?
Wow.
And yeah. Have you seen this new casino?
Girl,
It
no.
it's in the old Bloomingdale's building, that the one that looks
Oh,
like
I didn't know that. Yeah.
it's the one that looks like it has like onion domes on it. It was like a Shriner temple back in the day. And it was this characterless, featureless. It just felt like an office building that had roulette tables. And the minimum bet for anything was $50.
$50 for a
And
minimum bet? Wow.
yes, for everything. Because
No slot machines?
they did have slot machines, but I don't do those. But all the tables were a $50 minimum, and I was looking around. It was always just these like dumb guys, like all these dumb guys just sitting
Baseball
there,
hats?
baseball hats,
Oh, God.
like little
Tourists?
beards, and like no, I think it was a lot
Local?
of just, yeah, like
Oh,
just guys.
okay.
But my point to all of this is that back when I moved to Chicago in the mid 90s, like downtown Chicago was like Friday night at 5 o'clock, the loop was dead, and it was a ghost town until Monday morning at 7 o'clock. And we used to ride our bikes downtown, like just we could ride in the middle of the street because we could, because it was dead. And then you see this, like the riverfront area in Chicago. Like if you walked around there on the weekend, it's really gorgeous, and there's a bunch of restaurants, there's a million people, the people watching is incredible, cute dogs. And like that used to be like a homeless encampment when I moved to Chicago. And like no, there wasn't. I remember there was an episode of that show Early Edition. Do you remember that show? It was
Yep.
like it was the guy got the newspaper a day early. It was Coach Taylor from Friday Night Lights. I remember there was an episode where like the scene has him starting walking up a pair like the stairs from like the Wabash Bridge up to the
Hmm.
street. He runs into someone. I'm like, no one would ever be walking up those stairs. Like like I've never seen anyone use
Hmm.
those stairs. And now it's like a fucking disco downtown, everywhere. And it's like, and that all happened under Rom. Like when Rom took over from Daley, like, there was no investment and Rom got all this money. He got Trump to put
Well,
his
that was
fucking
started
hotel
by
in.
Daley, though.
Was
Daley
it?
start. Yeah, Daley started the whole process of the casino, the casino and stuff. Oh yeah, that was Daley.
But there wasn't, but the
He put
downtown
things in
area.
motion. No, Daley put things
Okay.
in motion. He did all the stuff with the TIF districts, and
Oh,
he's
yeah.
Daley did all the things. He started all of it.
Well, it came, but it came to
He and his
fruition under
brother. He and
Rom.
his brother. They both did a tremendous amount of work to bring revenue into the city, and it's just a lot of relation. I mean, here's the thing that I do know about politics is that what you're looking at right now is a result of the past work. It's not like
Hmm.
something that just happened a month ago, but like if you see something on the road, it was like 10 years ago that it happened, and now the money finally showed up. That's literally what, unless it's an emergency fund or something like the
Yeah.
pandemic money was like emergency shit. But generally what you're looking at is not, it's not something that, Rom, took it to the finish line but it was already there. It's
Yeah.
kind of like,
Well, my
back in like the day when, President Clinton, got rid of the deficit, and then the freaking next guy that showed up like blew it up again.
hmm
He ended up like
well,
ruining like the economy for America kind of thing. So anyway,
my
yeah,
point to
yeah.
the
What
to
is your
the
point
to
exactly
the
to
to the
that? Because
Vegasification of
yeah,
downtown is that
Vegas.
it's just become it could be anywhere. Like you could be walking
Okay, I
down
see what you're
Michigan
saying.
Avenue, and
Yeah.
you could be walking down Fifth Avenue, you could be walking down Rodeo Drive, you could be walking down. It's like this identical bastion to commercialism,
How gross.
and there's not anything to do, like you have to
But you're
spend
also
money. Like
you're
there's
also talking like you're talking north of the river, right? You're talking
I
north of the
am.
river.
Oh no, I'm not. I wasn't
You're not
even.
talking
And
north of the
oh yeah.
river.
Oh wait. So you're right. You're right. I am talking north
Yeah,
of the
north of
river.
the river. Yeah,
But
but I
it's
mean, here's my counter argument to that is that my experience, because I used to work downtown, is that Chicago never was a ghost town after 5 o'clock. I mean, yeah, and unlike New York, it's not a 24-hour city. But now, when I'm downtown, south of the river, okay, I want to make sure I say that I'm not heading towards Michigan. I'm not on Michigan Avenue north of the river because I'm not in that world. I'm not like I never really have been. But south of the river, like I don't feel as comfortable downtown as I used to. And I'm telling you, it's not my age because I have street smarts. It's not my gender. It's not my skin color. I just now that the city has become more desolate. There's a different type of person that's down there, and there's a lot of shops and restaurants and things that are just not open anymore. There's
hmm
like nothing there, right? The trains also, like I was on the train last week, and the train last week, one of the cars, every single person on the car, they were smoking marijuana, cigarettes, and they were sleeping and homeless. And I was with my kid. We had just come back because he's a D1 volleyball recruit. We had just come back from
Wait,
California.
actively smoking on a train?
Yes, girl. Yes.
Wow.
And so I was like thinking to myself, I was like, what is it? Like, what has gone wrong? Where is the emotional interest, love,
The
and
the
desire?
social the
Where,
social
like,
contracts that we
yeah,
all
like
kind of should be existing
where is
within.
the thing that like that shows people that the city is loved and cared for, and people like love the people. Like it's just, and I'm really disappointed, and I don't know how to fix it. And the reason I wanted you to come on to talk about this is because I feel like there's some people I can talk to about it, and they're not going to have a political answer. They're going to actually talk real. And there's some people that I talk to that are very defensive, and they just want
Hmm.
to pretend like there's other things at play here. And I'm still not getting to the bottom of what exactly is wrong, and I can't figure it out. I'm like, okay, is it because Trump, when he was in the White
Hmm.
House, he made it a point to put his ugly name on that building, which I think has brought bad karma. Number two, Is it because he had the media, he literally was saying horrible things about us and it hasn't stopped. Like, like it kind of started with like things he was saying about what a cesspool
Mm-hmm.
Chicago is and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. Like that's the first time I started hearing negative, really loud yelling, pervasive, negative things about Chicago from people that really haven't spent their lives living here. And it feels like, it almost feels to me that if you can tear Chicago apart, from the inside, and you also get help from the outside, then you're really tearing apart the blue middle of the country, which really is the foundation of democracy and the foundation of whether or not we're going to be able to have a Democratic president in the next upcoming election. Because if we lose Chicago, if we lose the state of Illinois, you saw what happened in Wisconsin. You saw what happened there. You saw what happened in Michigan. I mean, Indiana, forget about them. I mean, I don't care. They're close. We benefit from their money. They benefit from ours, but they're still a red state, right? But like you see, like if Illinois goes down, and like since then, we've lost a lot of people that really, definitely we've lost some really bad people in Chicago that are corrupt and criminal. But I also think that somehow we've lost some of the protection that we had against, anti-democratic forces that are willing to tear this country up. So I think that when I think to myself about the challenges that I'm having in Chicago that are actually real, maybe they've always been here, maybe they haven't, but I also feel like there are forces that are trying to like exacerbate and amplify some of these challenges that all of us are having. And nobody here seems to be focusing on the core of the feeling that people are having that something's not right.
Well, I think that feeling that things aren't right is again, I think that's national. Like, but I do think that in Chicago in particular, one of the things I think that's always been a problem in Chicago, when you're talking about being able to give money to, Black business owners or trying to find ways to like make it so that there's generational wealth that it doesn't just favor white people. The one thing that rich people cannot handle a conversation about is corporate welfare and how like
Yeah,
and how
100%.
it's socialism, it's socialism for me and capitalism for thee. Like they will take all of the money they can get from the government and justify it and then let it be forgiven and not, have to, like fucking Bear Stearns and like all of the people that should be in jail and instead they got a bailout. Like, that kind of stuff that creates this wealth level that like we're never going to see, and that's fine. I don't want that wealth level,
I do.
do you? What would you do
Hey,
with eight
listen,
million
speaking of
dollars?
speaking of generational wealth, I just so I'm a writer now for Fast Company magazine,
Yeah.
and I just my essay on generational wealth was just published yesterday on Fast Company. Speaking of which, and I actually talk about the mythology of generational wealth as a cover for the good old American dream conversation, which is a lie. So I love, you're actually right. I mean, yeah, I mean, do I want generational wealth? It depends on how you define it, and I really do talk about that in this particular essay that I just recently published, and it's a really great essay. Somebody
Well, I
just
think
texted me
that
and said they cried when they read it. It was really emotional for them. So, but you're right. I mean, no, I don't really. Do I want to be a billionaire? Listen,
I would never be a billionaire because I'd give too much of it away.
well,
Like,
I was just gonna say, if I were a billionaire, um, I would have so many opportunities to give that money away. Kind of like what
hmm
Melinda Gates is doing with all of her money. I
hmm
mean, she's giving a lot of it away, and she's doing a lot of things to try to help other women, find ways to financial independence. Right? That's a whole
well,
other
I mean, I don't.
conversation. But I mean, you get my point, though. It's like, listen, this, just back to my original statement that's having you respond to it is that if we cannot keep this city together, if Chicago falls, I'm telling you that
Falls
is
to
the end.
what?
If we fall to fascism and republicanism and conservatism, if we fall to that, I think if Illinois does not stay a blue state, I mean, listen, I'm telling you, it's if this is Illinois, people don't admit it, or Chicago, we are a core tenet of fresh water and financial movement and transportation. Like we cannot let this city go. And I'm telling you, the vibe of the city, you might say, Mary, it's happening everywhere. I think it's different here because we have a lot of power structures here
hmm
that the United States of America depend on.
Hmm.
And if we start doubting the opportunity and force of this city and this state, if we start doubting, if we have people, if the erosion of hope and belief starts to really penetrate at scale in this state, this is like, this to me is the end of America.
I don't think it's going to happen here. I don't
Tell
think
me
that there, I
why.
mean, well, because I mean, young people are fucking angry and they are not conservative. And we
Depends on who you
just
talk to. Depends on who you
I
talk
mean,
to in
sure,
Chicago.
but I mean, well, I'm not seeing it. But my point is that,
Well, that's like an
um,
algorithm. You're not seeing certain algorithms because of what you look at and what you're interested
yeah,
in. I mean, you really, it's like you can't make a blanket statement like that. There are people that are conservative. Black people, there are a lot of black conservatives in Illinois and Chicago. There are.
better vote for Trump.
Yes. 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 Now, I'm not one of them. I'm just saying yes.
Okay, I mean,
This
of
is what
course,
this
there's
is.
something for everybody. But I think it's a good sign that Brandon Johnson won and not Paul Vallis. I think it's a good sign
But
that
he has
we've
to
got
he has to
Pritzker.
deliver. Well, Pritzker is I love him. I love Governor Pritzker. I
Yeah,
really do.
he's fucking
I love
great.
him. He is, and I think that Mayor
He's
Brandon
fucking great.
he's got to step up. I mean,
Well,
I agree that, but I preface this by saying that he got my vote because it was an anti-Vallis vote. So now I need a pro Mayor Brandon Johnson vote.
see,
A
the
lot of people
problem
do.
with the thing is that the biggest problem with Chicago is the corruption. Just the like, there's so much greasing of hands and nothing gets done unless don't piss off the wrong person and they're
Well,
not
I
going to
said
be
that
the
in the
permit for
beginning.
this.
In the very beginning,
Yeah.
I was
And
mentioning that
so
there's people that are in and
how do
people that
you
are not.
how do you eliminate that? How do
You
you get
can't.
rid of
You
the
can't.
you okay, then we're never
There's
getting
no
out of it.
corruption. I know.
Then we're
I know.
never getting out of it. And the thing is that it will take people who are going to have to take political risks and in order to get things done. Like,
And so
you know,
we're taking a risk right now, Mary, by having this conversation. A lot of people won't even
sure.
stand out here and talk like this. They're just like, I'm not having that conversation because I'm not going to risk the bag. But my question becomes, what bag are you risking? What bag have you gotten? And is it the kind of bag that brings you generational wealth or not? Are you being kept in place by not speaking? What exactly are you doing here? We're running out of time.
I mean, we're either in end of days right now or we're in the same, or, or we are at where like, wait, you're
We started
laughing.
off this conversation with Mary, why you bugging you? We're really we might be in the end of days.
Yeah, we might be in the end of days right now.
I mean, it kind of feels like
Or
that sometimes. Yeah, it does. It
or
does.
we're at like the end of like the Gilded Age, like when robber barons were making, like this, it'll end with like a depression-esque kind of thing, and then we'll
Oh
have
God,
people who
no.
are all in this together or whatever. But that's the real,
The
I mean,
Dust Bowl, the Great Migration, what's the John Steinbeck book, Grapes of Wrath? We're all
mhm.
like gonna be starving or something. We're gonna need a great New Deal.
Well, we needed one.
Universal
We need
basic
one right
income.
now.
Universal basic income. I don't know. We didn't even talk about AI. Okay, that's for next time. Listen, Mary, always amazing talking to you. Love it. This is why I was
It
like,
was all over the place. We
I'm,
really,
but we do that. That's what we do. I mean,
hmm
I'm okay with it. I like,
hmm
I'm like, that's how I think, and that's how I process, and that's how, and like you too are a multi hyphenate. Like you do all, like you're a freaking beekeeper.
Oh, we didn't even get to that. My fucking neighbor. This is the
Wait, but
most.
I mean, like you talk about all over the place. Seriously, beekeeper, DJ, heading to stuff related to weddings. You have this amazing company. You got a kid. Like, I mean, like you're on a radio show. What's that thing you do on the radio show?
A Chirp Radio, the
Chirp,
Chicago
you're on
Independent
Chirp
Radio
Radio.
Project.
Don't be talking about
Yeah.
all over the place.
I
Like you can't
started
even
Chirp
help
Radio.
it. And you're a political
Yeah.
fundraiser that raised a ton of money for Sean Caston at a freaking famous woman's house named
No,
Gillian.
I raised my fundraiser was a couple days later. The only reason why I got to go to the
I don't
Gillian thing
care if it
was
was a
because I,
couple days later or before, but you brought in the cash. You brought in the
yeah,
cash.
no,
Come on now.
well, that's because well, the reason why was because I knew that I was safe politically in Chicago, that my vote was basically, it was going to work. It was going to go my
Not
way anyway.
anymore. That's what I'm
Well,
telling
but
you.
back when
Not.
but
I know. That was
that's the reason
pre-pandemic. I
why
know.
I got active with Sean Caston. I was like, I felt helpless. I'm like, where can I
Yeah.
put my money and my energy where it's going to work? And he was in, he was a first time running guy in a
Yeah.
Republican district, and it seemed, and he was a climate scientist, and all this kind of like fell underneath my
Yeah.
value systems.
I love
And
it.
so, it made sense for me to try to raise money for that because that was meaningful money. Giving money to Chewy wasn't going to like
You know, and I
move any
think that,
needles.
and I guess like, that environment, does it still exist? I don't know, but we're going to talk about it next time because you're
Okay.
coming back and we're going to have another
Yep.
conversation, and maybe we'll do this once a month until because the presidential election is coming up and we have to talk about this kind of stuff.
This
Politics
is.
is all local. And so
Hmm.
next time we'll talk about the next thing. Maybe we'll talk about AI next time. But listen, Mary, thanks for coming on my
No,
show.
thanks for having me.
This will not be edited, and I have to decide if I'm going to be bleeping out the fuck yous or if I'm going to be leaving them in. I think I might
I'll
bleep
leave them
them.
in. Just put an
I
E
know, but then
on.
I have to put an E on my podcast, which means that the children can't
So,
listen to it.
why would children want to listen to this?
Well, I mean, parents that are in cars listening to it, and the kids will be on the car too. I don't know. That was
Yeah,
back in the day.
I
My kids are
truly
teenagers.
I never even look at that. It's
I
like
love it. I
I'm a
love it.
terrible
Okay, that's
parent.
because I know that's because we're both in the entertainment and music business. Okay, Mary, thank you.
All right.
Bye. Don't hang up yet.
Yeah, I'm not.
Okay, everybody. Okay. Thank you for coming to the Honest Field Guide podcast. This was a great conversation, and I know it's a little bit off topic from the normal things I talk about, but it is important to me as an entrepreneur and small business owner that we have these types of conversations because they directly correlate with our ability to make money as entrepreneurs and achieve financial independence. I mean, honestly, like if the politicians are not working for us to help our lives improve and get better, then how are you going to run a small business in whatever state that you live in the United States of America, or even like internationally? Like what are we doing here? So we got to start figuring out ways to put more money in the pockets of small business owners because small businesses are actually driving the economy in the United States. As quiet as it's kept, they try to act like, the big businesses are doing all the work. Nope. It's people like us and it's moms like us that are doing all this stuff to keep and we didn't even talk about the hidden labor. But so next time, come back to the Honest Field Guy podcast, and I have a lot of great guests coming up in the next couple of months. And thank you for joining. Thank you, Mary Nisi. See ya.
Bye.
The Honest Field Guide is produced by the team at Burke Creative, where brand and multi-channel strategies are designed to help you get attention, grow, scale, and keep up with the pace of change. The music on the podcast is written and performed by Utah Carroll. You can find their songs everywhere online to buy or stream. The opinions expressed on the Honest Field Guide are solely those of the host and guests.